As it turns out, Professor Kolechka was working in the anatomy labs, which were near the maternity wards, Division 1 here, dissecting some cadavers. A student has a scalpel, and professor is pointing out something to the student here. The student's scalpel slips, punctures Professor Kolechka's finger, and Professor Kolechka then, over the course of the next little while, dies. However, Semmelweis is a very good observer, and what he notices is that even though Kolechka has not given birth, Kolechka is a male, he is not in the division ward, nonetheless, the symptoms that Kolechka exhibits are exactly the same symptoms that the women who are dying of puerperal fever are exhibiting. That then leads Semmelweis to classify the cause of death. Whatever it is that's killing the women in the first division is the same thing that is killing Kolechka, or has killed Kolechka in this particular situation. And we know what killed Kolechka. It was the introduction of cadaveric material from the corpses that was on the student's scalpel into his bloodstream. That was the cause of death. Now, why is this different in the first division compared to the second division? Well, what Semmelweis then also knows, and this allows him to start to put together a number of sentences that will then go into this new narrative theory that he's going to structure here, is that it was fairly common practices for many of the professors who were working in the anatomy lab with the students to do various anatomical investigations, then at the end of those wash their hands in a more or less perfunctory fashion. Again, this is before germ theory, this is before antiseptic is developed. So to wash in a fairly perfunctory fashion and then go on to the next thing in their rounds, and in many cases the next thing on their rounds was to go to the maternity division, go into the first division, see how the women who had given birth recently were doing, and to examine the women, which involved physical contact with them in places that are still sensitive and in many cases torn and still recovering from the rigors of childbirth here. So we have a delivery mechanism that's possible. We know that cadaveric material entered into Kolechka's bloodstream. We can see that cadaveric material can also possibly be entering into the women's bloodstream in the first division. So we put all of that together in a new sentence that is now part of a narrative, and we'll call that hypothesis number 5. Hypothesis number 5 is that the introduction of cadaveric material into the bloodstream of the women in the first division is causing their death by puerperal fever. Now again, we can run an experiment that will yield some predicted results that will or will not bear upon the truth of this hypothesis here. Semmelweis, with a certain amount of resistance from the other physicians in the hospital, instituted a very rigorous cleansing regime after anybody handled corpses and before they went in to see the women to approach a much cleaner state. If we run this experiment and not allow anybody to handle the women who has not undergone this sterile regime, then under those circumstances, the death rate of women in the first division should go down significantly. That's the prediction that we are hoping for. So we run that set of experiments, and it turns out that the death rate in the first division does go down significantly as a result of the new hygiene regime. And so we're now in then a position to say that H5, the hypothesis that it's cadaveric material, is confirmed. Now, that's one round of experiments. We might want to run the experiments in various other ways to make sure that we're not missing out on anything. But eventually the hypothesis is confirmed, and what we have is a landmark discovery in the history of medicine that works with germ theory as it's to be developed shortly thereafter, and then various antiseptic measures that were developed shortly thereafter. But nonetheless, as a practical matter, as well as a theoretical matter, a problem is solved here. There are a large number of women who are very tragically dying shortly after giving birth. That problem can be significantly eliminated. And so what we found was after Semmelweis's new knowledge was taken into account, the death rate in the first division went down very significantly until it was virtually identical with the death rate in the second division here. Now the point, though, epistemologically, is this as a case example, and we've worked it through in some detail here, that it shows a very sophisticated interplay of all of these skills. For Semmelweis to be able to do what he did, to make that massive contribution to the stock of human knowledge, to move from that state of tragic ignorance where women are dying and nobody has a clue why they are dying, to a state of knowledge where we know why the women are dying, we know what to do about that, and so that women then, as a result, more often live and are then able to enjoy their lives, and their children don't have to grow up without their mother. That is an amazing cognitive achievement, and it's an amazing contribution to human values in this case here. It wouldn't have happened, though, if Semmelweis had not self-developed, and with no doubt the contribution of whatever his educational history was, the ability to observe, to classify, to form complex sentences, to form narratives, to do all of the stuff that goes into forming and analyzing and verifying, or in some cases refuting theories, very proficiently. And so this then sets a standard. If we want our students not only to enjoy the fruits of modern medicine, but be able to contribute, hopefully, to the development of modern medicine, these are the sorts of things that we want to be able to teach them so that they themselves can do them proficiently in whatever walk of life they go into.